you know, happy Monday on a Tuesday.
Got your book here.
Nice.
So when we start, we usually start a few minutes late because it takes people a few minutes to roll in. Here's this cool book that you have to see called Innovation Methods Mapping. And it is a survey of innovation process. Like, how do we collaborate? Like, how do people work together? Everything from assembly lines to brainstorming farm, think tanks.
What's it called again?
It's called, I can say it's in the doc. I can send you along with a bunch of other books, but I'm proposing some reading groups at the CNCF. So people can kind of like have something that's not about this PR or about this one project, but
yeah, nice. Love it.
But as we think about like how do we use agentic systems and all of that kind of stuff,
Seems relevant.
I think so, right? We should be explicit about the
Be right back.
Yes. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. We'll be starting in just a few minutes. We'll let people roll in. It usually takes 3 or 4 minutes, but we'll open the meeting formally in just a minute. Thanks for coming.
I don't know about y'all, but I was like, it's a long weekend. I'm going to catch up on everything. And now I'm like, oh, fuck, it's a shorter week than ever. And I caught up on nothing. But I read 3 fantasy books and snuggled with my cats.
Hey, sometimes you have to like let your brain, at least I have to occupy my immediate, like what I'm doing to let things marinate in the back properly.
That's what I was doing, letting important concepts marinate. Down.
Rumination, marination, who's to say, right?
Napping.
All right. So hello, folks. We've got some new faces, and we'll be opening in just a moment. I think we'll start at 12:04 or 12:34 rather. Hi, Ken. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Charity.
Good morning, Ms. Hazel.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. Got married this morning. Remarried.
Nice. Congratulations.
My wife and I got divorced during the pandemic, and we just moved things up a little because the orange man is coming for gay marriage. So last time it made a difference whether you were married and it didn't get taken away versus couldn't form new ones. So, playing the odds.
Yeah, I get that. I'm currently planning on getting the hell out of here.
Yeah, one common sentiment.
So while we're waiting for Alalita and a few others, we'll be starting at 34. There's a lot of new faces. My name is Matt. Who's here for the first time? Just give a shout out and introduce yourself. We're a friendly bunch.
I'm here for the first time. Charity Majors, a CTO and co-founder of Honeycomb, and very delighted to be here. First time.
I'm Hazel Weekly. I'm here for the second time. The first time I was here, I was the one presenting, and so that was fun. And I have a lot of thoughts on observability and on everything else as well. And so I'm very happy to be here and make fun of Charity the entire time. Wait, did I say that out loud?
I'm Miguel Luna. I'm a product manager in Elastic. Hey, Ken, nice shirt. I like the Ted Lasso AFC Richmond. Love it.
Thanks.
It's just next, very close to me. I'm based in London.
So, okay, so there's a lot of new faces. So I'm also going to send a link to our meeting stock. Feel free to mark your attendance if you like. People mostly do. I'll do the same right now in the last minute. So Alalita, our other co-chair, is actually this morning giving a talk on distributed tracing. And so I just got a message that she might be a little late because there's probably going to be some Q&A. Yeah. Okay, so this is a CNCF event. Welcome, everyone. This is our second Tuesday of the month meeting of Tag Observability. This is a CNCF sponsored event. The code of conduct does apply. Please don't do or say anything that would be a violation of that code. And the link is in the chat. So today, we're going to skip some of the administrivia. We have a lot to talk about. In our next meeting in 2 weeks, we'll be talking about the tag reboot. If anyone's been following along with the TOC over these last few months, there's a big restructuring in tags to make them, I think, more awesome and make it easier for people to cross-pollinate and to do cool things like working groups with lower friction. But we'll be talking about that in 2 weeks after we've had time to digest some materials. Today, we're joined by Charity Majors, and she's written this book. If you don't already have a copy, it's been out for a bit. It's a great read. And to give some brief context before we start, back at the end of last year, in our last meeting, Ted Young joined us and talked about the future of observability and open telemetry. And it was a really cool talk. And in that talk, the term Observability 2.0 came up, and it keeps coming up. Charity's done a lot of writing about it, but it's these are some, there's history to some of these ideas, and it came up that that in multiple contexts we found some people using this term, and I said, well, part of our mission is to educate and inform, and this is an active discussion in our community, so we should have these terms defined, and we should talk about some of those concepts and not have it be like if you know what it means, that was funny, and everybody doesn't understand what it means. So without further ado, thank you, Charity, for joining us today. And take it away. You should be able to share your screen. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you. Also, for context, I'm not usually this disorganized, but I only can stay till the top of the hour. So Matt and I were thinking I would come for 30 minutes this time, and then 2 weeks I'll come back for 30 minutes, and hopefully handle, like, we can do questions and discussion, because honestly, that's my favorite part. And I feel, but I got married at the last minute, and then there was a thing that I thought I could reschedule and I couldn't. So my apologies.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier today. This is a great idea. We'll also post an email about it. I actually think this is cool to have content, and then in 2 weeks have like an actual conversation and with some follow up that we're after some marination and thought has happened. So
I'm a huge fan of open telemetry, and I was sitting here trying to find. I can't find all my stickers, but here's one of my favorite stickers that we made, which is backwards, but you need to re-instrument your code with open telemetry. Did you just tell me to go fuck myself? I've got a few other quality ones here. If any of you would like they're all kind of rude, but they're rude with love. If any of you would like some of these, just DM me your mailing address and I'll hook you up with a little care package of stickers. All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Help me keep an eye on the time. My team will not be happy if I'm late to this. So this is a little.
You every 5 minutes on the clock. How about that?
That's a great idea, Hazel. Thank you so much. You are a helpful helper. That's not what I want to do. You know what? I'm just going to leave it up and do it this way. So when I think about modern software development practices, I really think of these things: owning your code in production, practicing observability-driven development, testing in production, using feature flags to separate deploys from releases, and continuous deployment. And I feel like, oh, well, that's the downside of doing it this way, is all little thing, whatever. If technical leaders have one job, it's this. It's like the feedback loops that are at the heart of every system. And observability is, I think, like the feedback loop. It is the feedback loop that is the foundation of all other feedback loops. If you have good observability, everything downstream from that is faster, tighter, cleaner, neater. What is observability? There are as many definitions as there are engineers. When Christine and I were adopting this term back in 2016, we really drew a lot of inspiration from the control systems theory, that it's how well you can understand the internal state of any system just by observing its outputs. These days, I mean, you're probably familiar with the observability has 3 pillars, to which I say, bullshit. Those are just data formats. Those are historical, like it's just because we've always done it that. More cynically, it's because all observability providers have a metrics product to sell you, a logging product to sell you, a tracing product to sell you. But where does it stop? They also have a profiling product to sell you, errors product. It's just like, come on, they're just data formats. I think of observability this way. It's the property of complex systems. But I think that if you look at I think there's been a huge sea change in the world. And I honestly wasn't sure until recently if this was going to be just sort of a niche sea change, kind of like the way NoSQL revolutionized database workloads, but only for a narrow slice of them, right? Or if it was going to be like a big sea change, like the way cloud computing versus on-prem, like completely inverted in terms of like the bulk of, everything's on cloud. And I'm increasingly convinced that this is the bigger sea change, that like 2, 3, 5 years from now, everybody's going to be understanding their systems using a non-3 pillars model. But if you're trying to like sort of describe the generations, I get irritated too when people use semantic versioning for marketing purposes. I genuinely don't think this is what it is. I think that if you're trying to describe like the old way of doing observability, it does have pillars. It has many pillars. You've got, you're storing a copy of your data in a different format for every different tool that you want to use, right? Whether that's metrics, logs, traces, profiling, APM, RUM, exceptions, error, just like analytics, product analytics, you store it again in different, versus the replacement model or the newer model, which is you have a single source of truth. It's arbitrarily wide structured data blobs with as much high cardinality as you want, high cardinality, high dimensionality, explorability. But the point is that there's a single source of truth from which you can derive metrics, you can derive your logs, you can visualize them over time as a trace, you can zoom out, you can zoom in, you can slice and dice, you can, but like all roads lead back to Rome. In a glance, this is probably the quickest and easiest way of sort of summarizing, but I'm going to skip kind of past this fast because I go into these in more detail later on. The biggest objection that I hear is, but it's so hard. Like we haven't wrapped our heads around my observability 1.0 yet, or we're still struggling with cardinality trade-offs. We're still struggling with, to which I answer, and you always will be. There is no solving for those problems. You can only, it's more like diabetes. You can manage them sort of with a lot of time and money and effort. You can't solve them. It's actually just that observability 2.0 is faster. If you put it in front of a new grad, like a 3 pillars or multi-tools model versus like an observability 2.0, it's so much faster and easier for someone who's new to computers to understand observability 2.0. But we have decades of expertise in, metrics and in the pillars model. Under the hood, though, there's only 3 data types. There's metric, you can do math with it. There's the unstructured log, you can do string searches on it. And then there's structured logs, for which you can do all of computer science. Data structures. I don't know how to, right, whatever. The data structures model for Observability 1.0, again, all these different siloed tools. What holds these tools together? Nothing. You, the engineer, sitting here going, well, that graph shape looks like that shape, so they're probably the same requests. You can't validate, you can't verify it because you discarded all that context at right time, right? Or you're eyeballing timestamps and hoping there's no NTP drift, right? You're eyeballing timestamps going, okay, here's the logs for that graph that I care about. And then if you want to trace, you like trace the event ID and you copy paste it over to a tracing tool, hope it didn't get sampled out, right? You, the engineer, are the only thing that really knits all of these together. When it comes to paging and alerting, you deploy your code and you wait to get paged. As with any socio-technical system, there is some overlap here. There's some of these best practices that you can try to adopt with, very 1.0 style tooling, but it fights you all the way, right? The Observability 2.0 model is much more, you you know you can't trust your code. You know that the source of truth is production. And as part of validating your code, you ship it to production as fast as you can. And you look at it through the lens of your instrumentation and you ask, is it doing what I expect it to do? Does anything else look weird? And one of the ways that 2.0 enables this in a way that 1.0 doesn't is because if you have full support for high cardinality and you preserve the raw requests, et cetera, then you can deploy to like a canary or flip on a feature flag or slice and dice and combine all the way down to like the specific requests for the diff that you have shipped, for the specific place that you shipped it to. And you can compare it to the baseline. You can be like, what impact did my change have? When all you have is aggregates and averages and buckets, you can't do that. You put out a lot more effort and you get a lot less back. How you interact with production. This is, and by the way, I feel like so much of this becomes so much more true in an AI world. Like, I feel like there's so much money chasing right now after generating a lot of code really fast. But as all of us know, writing code has never been the hard part about software engineering, right? It's everything that comes after that. It's understanding your code in production. It's migrating it. It's upgrading it. It's merging. It's owning it. It's that long tail of ensuring quality, ensuring understanding over time. And one of the things that we've been talking about at Honeycomb is how much Observability 2.0 is equipped to help engineers shift that burden of ownership from write time to deploy time. Because increasingly, so many engineering orgs are based in this world where the way that the steps that they rely on to understand their code in production are something changes, they figure out who made the change, and then they go talk to that person, which is great if you can assume that every diff was written by someone who deeply understands it. And increasingly, it's just not true. Increasingly, the engineering orgs are just suffering from this influx of software of unknown origin that maybe nobody ever understood deeply. And this is kind of just a reality that we have to face. Let's get past this. Who uses it and how? Observability 1.0 was very much a ops thing, right? Ops owns this, right? Software engineers would write code, boop, 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 and then they'd be ready to send it to production and they'd hand it over to ops teams to like add some metrics or alerting, right? This really doesn't work. Because our systems have just become too complex, right? And we need instrumentation to be tightly interwoven with the development process from start to finish. Observability 2.0 is very much part of the development process. It's, your instrumentation is production is the closest thing to any real source of truth you will ever have. Along with Observability 1.0 being very much an ops thing, went a heavy reliance on static dashboards. I've said a lot of spicy things about dashboards in the past, probably a few too many. I actually like there's nothing wrong with dashboards as long as they're interactive, as long as you can click on them, as long as you can drill down, zoom out, as long as you can. If they're just static representations on a page, then you're not interacting with your data, you're not exploring it, you're not building up the kind of rich mental model of what's happening in your systems. And I really do feel like they're like, every dashboard is like an artifact of some past failure and they just pile up, You can't delete them because at one point they were useful to you. But what you really want is to have much more of a developer style debugging interactive workflow. The way that you have historically debugged with Ollie 1.0 tools is, this is something I kind of want to underline because every place I ever worked up until Facebook, it was true that the debugger of last resort was the person who had been there the longest. Don't get me wrong, I've made a career out of being that guy, and I love being that guy. Like, there's nothing, you can get high on the feeling of just like, everybody's like running around trying to figure it out, and you just sort of like look back and go, it's Redis. And they're like, what? And you're like, no, trust me. I know it doesn't say Redis anywhere on the wall, but trust me, it's Redis. And they go and they look, and they're like, oh my God, you're like a God. And you're like, I know, like it feels good. It feels amazing. It's not good for you. It's not good for anyone. And I've now worked at a couple of places, at Parse, at Facebook, and at Honeycomb, where that actually wasn't true. It's not a fact of life. It's an artifact of your tooling. It's an artifact of the reality when so much of the connective tissue between data sources doesn't exist in your tools. It only exists in your head, in scar tissue, past outages, past things that you built, right? That's why you have to rely on that debugger of last resort. If you have if you have tooling that preserves all that context, those relationships between data, allows you to do like anomaly detection in a real way, not just like magic way, then your best debuggers become people who are the most curious, people who consistently look in on their code after they deploy it, people who consistently make a practice of going, here's the change I just deployed. Is it doing what I expect it to do? And does anything else look weird? And the cost implications. Obviously, I think that a big like wedge issue for folks right now is the cost crisis, because good observability is never cheap, right? For most folks, your infrastructure bill is your biggest bill. Your observability bill is number 2. But the cost multiplier of having to store it in a different silo for every different type of question you want to ask is just absurd. You know, we don't have free money anymore. The zero interest rate phenomenon is over. And the cost multiplier alone is a problem. But a bigger problem is actually the fact that when we're grounding our source of truth in metrics-based tools, then a lot of folks are like, but metrics are cheap. No, the count of metrics is cheap. If you want to store any data relationships, then you have to pay to store every single unique combination of keys, values, tags. It is so much more expensive. I wrote a white paper recently on the cost crisis in metrics-based tools. And yeah, you can pay like 80 cents to get 100 metrics a month on many, of the metrics providers, if you store absolutely like no interesting data in them. If you want to store just a heat map for just the 63 unique status codes for 5 methods and 100 and say 1,000 instances, nothing crazy, right? One heat map for 63 status codes, it's $63,000 a month. Now, of course, anyone who knows anything about metrics is going to go, whoa, but that's not how we do metrics. We don't store a separate time series for every unique combination of every status code and blah, blah, blah. We bucket them. We put them in 1xx, 2xx, 3xx, 4xx, and 5xx, right? And I'm like, yeah, I know. We've got all these little hacks to try and have less cardinality in our data. But the cardinality of the data is what makes it useful, which is why I know so many world-class observability engineering teams that spend an outright majority of their engineering cycle doing nothing but managing that line between cost and cardinality on an ongoing basis forever. Again, it's like diabetes. You can't cure it. You can only manage it, right? And if you want, and flattening status codes into 5 buckets makes you weak as an engineer. I don't know how many times I have debugged some weird ass problem, like just because of a string and an HTTP status line and a weird code, right? The difference between a 502 and a 504 really freaking matters. They're very different things, right? So the cost implications of look, I have a reputation, which I probably deserve. I'm going to throw up the sticker for hating metrics. I do not hate metrics. I simply think that metrics are the specialist use case and structured data is the generalist use case. And I understand why we got here, how we got to the place we're at. And it was because 30 years ago, when we were first instrumenting our code, a 512 megabit hard drive costs like $5,000. So we were like, oh my God, what is the least amount of data we can possibly store that will help us understand something about our systems? And our systems weren't that complex. We had the web tier, the app tier, the database. How bad could it be, right? We live in a very different world now, where storage is dirt cheap in comparison, and our systems are incredibly complex. And all that cardinality, all that complexity is needed. So I'm not saying metrics are going away. They will always, you need them for counters, right? Counters and gauges. You need them for super high throughput. It's higher than most people think it is, but no joke. Yeah, Google needs to use metrics. Absolutely. There are niche use cases where only metrics will do. But like right now, like 80% of the workloads are being used by metrics-backed tools, and structured data is considered the niche use case. And those ratios need to flip. Yeah, all right. I've got like 5 minutes left, so I'm gonna skip the fluff. Observability for engineers, it's just you understand what's happening from your code. And I'm gonna just show, are we too busy to improve? Because I just love that little Lego guy to put it at the end of all my talks. And that's the Ollie 2.0 pitch in a nutshell. I'm so bummed that we can't just launch into, but I'm really glad that Hazel is here, because Hazel will argue with me and also I think represent pretty well. We've both spent a lot of time thinking about this.
Yeah. And speaking of arguing with you, why did I do that observability 3.0 thing again?
So you know what, Hazel, it's a little bit ironic. I keep thinking about that, and while I'm like, you're confusing everyone, I also am like, no, you're even more right than I thought you were when I first read it, because I do think that like the way the industry is moving is towards data lake style observability, where there's one source of truth, which is structured data, metrics attached in a way that is not just a janky bridge, but and then using AI to surface these insights to engineering adjacent teams. I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff there. I'm just like, God damn it, Hazel, when did you have to say that? Because now we're just like, oh well, 3.0 is, and it's just like, ah.
So yeah, so in 2 weeks, Tuesday in 14 days, we'll come back and we'll have some Q&A, and we'll figure out a way to do questions in advance, because I'm guessing that we'll have more than an hour to talk about.
I will also
more than an hour's worth of stuff. But so it sounds like, so to seed that conversation, I'll say, so consolidated unified storage, save everything all the time forever. Everyone can do that. So
I'm also gonna drop the link to my slides here. I really apologize for all that formatting too, but like if you want to.
There's also something really interesting with observability, to pick on the data format thing, and Charity can back that up. Traditionally, observability as a vendor has basically always been, you have a database, and then you store your data in a database, and then you charge a premium on the query model. And so it's always been a factor of what's cheap for you to store, that's cheap for them to give to you. What's expensive for you to store and or query, that's what they blow up the cost for. And then when you build something over time and you create a bajillion different products, you get this weird ass cost matrix of a feature set, because in the back end, there's 50 different databases and 20 different weird ass query engines. And so you just get these hidden spikes in cost, because all it is just tacking on a little price premium to every random query in the back end.
Yeah, I was being facetious somewhat about but conceptually, having not having a whole sea change, right? Like everybody grew up looking at cardinality bombs, and
if we spent
a lot
half
of time doing this,
if we spent half as many cycles trying to replace our cardinality problems instead of trying to not have them, we would be in such a better place now.
Yeah. I think that real pivot point too around, are you doing right time aggregation, and where are you paying? Are you pre-aggregating, and then that costs everything, or are you doing a different way of fast querying and using fan out or lots of other things. And I think there's a lot of opportunity, and I'd love to talk about some of this in the coming weeks, in 2 weeks.
One thing I didn't mention that I should put in the
Accelerate very
slide deck
quickly.
about related to the scale of the transformation. I haven't seen a new observability to startup in the last year and a half that was based on the 3 pillars model. They're all coming out with single source of truth models now, but mostly backed by ClickHouse.
Yeah, and yes, that is absolutely true. Columnar storage really is the future.
Game changer.
Just in a different way of thinking about things, as well as just fundamentally how we're leveraging storage differently. I think
So one of the things that I like to point out as something that is annoying about columnar storage is because you can't do joins, if you have a very nested trace like waterfall, it's super, super annoying to do these, cross trace queries of when something's in the root span and something's inside of here. And then, so like, generally smiling on it because you had to do a whole bunch of work in your backend to kind of support that.
Yeah, that's why we brought our own. So like we can do this stuff. But if you're just using ClickHouse, you can't. All right, last call for addresses before I have to drop. I just saw one. Or feel free to DM me your address on LinkedIn or whatever. I will send out hotel stickers. They're pretty dope.
Cool. Thank you for joining us. Let's respect your time. You have 10 seconds left or something like that.
I'll see y'all in 2 weeks. Thanks for having me.
Okay. So we've got all right, so that's all we had formally on the agenda for today. If folks wanted to chat and talk about stuff, we do have time open. I don't see any other proposals in our meeting doc or anything specific to talk about. Does anyone want to, it's open floor unless we want to return time to people's day. Right. Well, in that case, thanks very much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.